can write to me back and just explain to me, I'd be happy. He says, no, why don't you grab 15 minutes of my time? I grabbed 15 minutes of his time, and we went through it, and he just explained to me like a 2-year-old. No, this is what we do, this is what happens, etc. And so they're such great people, to be honest. And then also at the same time, because a lot of my roles, I think for the 3 years I was in Microsoft, I was deeply involved in building the development center here. So I didn't get to meet many people outside. And so now I get to meet a lot of organizations in Africa and across the world. One of the projects we were working at some point when I just joined them, it was winding down, was how to infuse AI into Volkswagen cars. And you meet the Volkswagen folks, and they're such interesting people, and you're all the way here, and we use their cars, and you think about the processes they use in terms of infusing this technology into their cars, and it's really amazing. Obviously, my ambition is that one day I hope one of their AI will be built by someone here. And so how do we get that to happen? So the people.
Thank you, Jack. You've mentioned about your career path, meeting James Mwangi on a plane or actually at the airport, all the way to actually joining Microsoft and now eventually Google. How do you know you are ready for some of these roles, Jack? What are the skills that you think you had and didn't have, and things that you grew in?
Yeah. So first of all, I'll tell you now. When I joined Equity, I had serious imposter syndrome, because you meet impressive people. Guys who grew this. That bank was 66 out of 66 when Kenya had 66 banks, and then they grew it all the way to number 2 at that time. Now they're number 1. So you meet these impressive people, and you're like, wow. And I joined the Microsoft. I'm like, you meet really smart people, both local and international, and you sit down and you're thinking to yourself, man, I'm gonna be fired next month. I swear. Because and then you join Google and you sit there. One of the first meetings you have is 3 Turing Award winners, and you're like, oh man, see now what you've done. And so you have serious imposter. And look, guys, imposter syndrome is good. And why do I say it's good? It's great to be confident, but also feeling like you have this way to go also keeps you in check a little bit, and so you don't have too much of a big head. And so it's okay to feel like, oh man, I need to know more things. I need to do more, because that hunger, keeps you going as well. Anyone who runs a business, like Conrad and Sam here, will tell you that there's always a next hill to climb. You get this big customer. Okay, let's get two more bigger customers. Let's get 3 more bigger customers. And so that's the way it is even as individuals. There's always going to be something more for you to do. And so it's important. I think imposter syndrome is a good thing to have in most cases. Just don't let it overpower you. It's also negative when you feel like you actually don't belong in a place. Don't let it get to that point. It's just that it prompts you for action, and that's the important thing. So for me, that has been my experience so far. That getting that insatiable need for sorry, that's my alarm. Yeah, so having that feeling so that you can do more things. I think that's what pushes you to actually do a lot more than you need to. Yeah.
Another note, what is that alarm about?
So I'm not diabetic or anything like that. It's so I always put at 7 o'clock. That's the time I'm supposed to go and call the kids for dinner. So clearly that's not gonna be. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you balance having a family and your career?
Yeah, no, it's difficult. It really is hard. Look, I don't want to sit here and lie to anyone that if you decide you wanna put yourself into your career, there's no price to pay. Whatever road you choose, there's a price to pay. If you decide to work hard, if you decide to be long hours in the office, if you decide to be coding all night, there are people who will not appreciate that. Okay? And that's just the price you have to pay. Is there a balance? Sure, but balance is always going to be subjective. According to who? It has to be according to yourself and the people around you. So I do have to say, I mean, there are periods of time like I didn't spend enough time with my kids. I'll tell you that. The equity time, I'd come into the office because we're doing a telco and we're running the digital channels, and equity is a monster. I mean, 6 countries, over 12 million customers, and everything is going digital. And then you have compliance, you have central banks, you have businesses. It's a lot. And then the way the organization is that you really have to be hands-on on everything because it's a bank. It's difficult to delegate some of these things. And so I remember sometimes I'd get to the office at 5 a.m., and leave at 9 p.m. And there is a price to pay. The question is are you willing to pay the price? Is it worth it for you as an individual? And then the second thing is it worth it for the people around you? Do you have a good support system? Now, by the time I was leaving, equity, for me, I was burnt out. I said, I really have done enough, and I want to spend more time now with my kids. And so that's why I left. And it just so happened those 3 months I stayed outside equity. I actually had no job, by the way. I had 0 job. But it was the best 3 months ever. I was like taking them to school. We're having lunch. We would have dinner together. We'd go for ice cream. I forgot about how ice cream tastes, by the way. It was really nice. And then of course, Microsoft came calling, and so when they told me they're doing a dev center, there was a no-brainer, and they're a bit more structured. So that was a good thing for me. I could not to that extent have the privilege of picking them from school and dropping them and all those things, but yeah, it was a good break for me.
So it was a good break for you. So you must have built some ethos. So what's your philosophy in a nutshell?
Yeah, I mean, for me, mine is very simple. Like I said, stay grounded and really work hard. I mean, those of you who know me, and I've probably have heard of me. When you look at me, I'm really unimpressive, to be honest, and I think I'm very average, in all respects. I'm not. I don't have dreadlocks. I don't. I'm actually quite average. I'll tell you that for a fact. But what you do is that you make sure that you at least for me, always stay grounded and always work hard. I mean, those are just the basic things. And when you work hard, work hard with the intention of solving a challenge that you have, but not also being delusional about what you're doing. And this is why I say delusional is because I also sit on a couple of boards of some fintechs, and you can see it's nice to be tenacious, but at the same time also be realistic about what you're doing. So stay grounded and work hard. And I think I tell you what, the universe, whatever you believe in, if you believe in God, then God. If you believe in the universe will always reward people who work from the heart and do this and do the right thing. Somehow, you may not win in office politics, you may not win in short-term benefits, but the long-term play, you always come out on top. Believe me.
Were you ready for Microsoft, Jack?
Was I ready?
Mm-hmm.
In what sense?
To join them. You said it was
yeah.
a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, the mission was noble. They're setting up development centers to hire engineers, content writers, product managers in Africa. I'm like, what's there not to like about it? And so that's why, for me, I felt it. It was something that I wanted to join. Yeah.
So, for some of the people in the audience who are thinking of a change in career path or trying something different from their degree, what kind of advice do you have for them?
So there are 2 things. The first one is, if you want to make a change, why are you making that change? Look, one of the things I say is we are not as privileged as some of you maybe are, but during my time, you're not as privileged to follow your dreams because, it's a generational problem. We didn't have parents back then who could bankroll our passions and let us stay in their houses for until we were 36, and you're still in your bedroom. By the time you're already 18, your parents are looking at and saying, "Dude, you need to get out." You know, so a lot of us had to put our passion on hold. Just so happened for some of us they aligned at the right time. But you have to pick and choose what your battles are. Do you follow your passion that will need to career progression and make sure that you are able to put, you're able to support yourself and support the people around you, or can you do them both? If your passion, let's say, is floral arrangements, you like to arrange flowers. Can you do your job right now and still do that, or can you pursue them at the same time? I mean, those are some of the things that you really have to make a trade-off choice. And life is all about trade-offs, by the way. All of you have sacrificed time to be here and interact with us. So those are trade-offs that you chose. And so everything in life is a trade-off. If you want to change your career, let's say you don't like what you studied, and by the way, I have a lot of problems with our universities, and don't get me started on that. In terms of them not teaching people skills that are meant to be absorbed in the industry. But if you want to pivot to something else and you think it can be good for you, please do it. Do it. But also bear in mind that you have yourself to support and maybe you have other people to support. So just kind of make that I know when we watch a lot of movies and videos from the West, people always say how you'll make it, but the social fabric of Western countries is not like ours. There you get food stamps if you're poor. You get an allowance from the government. When's the last time anyone got an allowance from the government? In fact, if anything, Ngare wants more. Right? So you have to think local. Yes? It's one thing for us to absorb all the movies we see about this guy who decided to start up this thing and he made it through. But believe me, they always had some capital backing from somewhere. So you have to make sure that you're realistic about and give your business, give your thought, give your dream at least 3 to 5 years. Don't think you're going to start up something and in 1 year it's going to bear fruit. It's not. If all these organizations, I'll tell you what, who knows when Safaricom became a company? Safaricom was started in 1992 in Telcom. They became a company in 1998. So that was 6 years when they were incubated. All right. When did M-Pesa become M-Pesa? After how many years? 7. 7 years is when it actually made headlines that, there's this thing in Kenya that's actually doing a good job. Equity. It started as a building society, now with money. Not the time when Dr. Mwangi took over in 1993. It became a bank in 2002. 9 years. So you can see for anything that we appreciate right now, and those were startups, by the way. If you think about Safaricom, it was a startup because it was incubated in Telcom. Building Society was a startup. So anything that in this economy, at least the African economy, for you to scale, give it years. Let me broaden that. Across the world. Amazon, how many years? Before even we knew what happened.
5.
More than 5. Yeah. And now it only turned a profit in 2016. From the time it was set up in 1990 something. So all these dreams and all these ideas and all these things that you're pursuing takes time. If you want to learn how to code a new language, it'll take time. No matter how smart you think you are, no matter how brilliant you are, it'll take time. So start now. But give yourself some leeway.
Patience, Jack. That's the emphasis here. And the Gen Zs are not patient. Some of us just generally in life, we're not patient. How do we cope with the impatience? We want to build faster. We want to code faster. We want tech talent faster in the ecosystem. The likes of Google, Microsoft hiring hundreds of developers, Safaricom thousands to this date. How are we coping with all this? There's impatience in the ecosystem.
Yeah, and you're right. We are all impatient because our food now is microwaved and when we want channels, we just switch on our TV and we have channels. You want news of today, you go to YouTube and whatever. So you're right, but there's some things that always remain the same. In terms of the time it takes to develop, and you just have to bite the bullet. And our talent's a good example. If we start programs today, and we're discussing it earlier with Sam, if we start programs today of enabling the tech ecosystem, it is not for now. It is 5 years from now. That's when you'll have this. One of the things I'll tell you we are struggling to do, and we were struggling in Microsoft and Google is the same thing, is how do you get more senior tech talent? That is a problem right now. I'll tell you. If you have been in the tech industry and have managed a team for greater than, let's say, 7, 8 years, you're rare in this ecosystem. And if you applied to any tech company, Google, Microsoft, Meta, AWS, and more, Dropbox, you name them, you will most likely get an interview. That I can guarantee you. You'll get an interview. Because the senior level talent is not there. We don't have it. To the extent of even some of them suggesting we need to import from elsewhere. So it takes time. One of the things I tell a lot of those companies is, look, you have this problem now, but can you imagine 6 years from now, when you have all the people I can see here, when you guys have matured, or you're already maturing, or you're already gotten there? I mean, it won't be a problem. They will definitely be awash with people they can hire. But for right now, this is the problem we have. But it takes time to grow, and that's just the way life is.
Are these talent wars going to intensify in the ecosystem?
Yeah, so I was wondering when you'd get to that. Yeah, so they will. Truth is, they will. But like I said, you remember those 1.3, 1.4, between 1.2 and 1.4 million kids every year? I'm hopeful. If we can get a lot of those KCPE kids to into the tech industry, I mean, then we stop talking about tech wars, because we have the resource. And that's what India did very well. But the advantage of India is that they had the government backing. So the government intentionally said, we will invest in technology and train our people. Intentionally. So they all these universities where you see Sundar came from, and Sundar, the CEO of Google, or where Satya came from in India, those were government built and run institutes of technology, and they all came from those universities. The people you see leading those multinationals right now in the US, tech companies, they all came from those places, because the government intentionally was deliberate about it. Now, for us, I think in Africa, to be honest, I don't think our story is ever written by the government. It's written by the private sector and by all of us. I mean, we can't wait. So collaborating with a lot of the ecosystem, we need to invest in our talent, and then hopefully, one of you will become the CEO of Google or Meta, and I'm hopeful that's going to happen. Yeah.
All right. We're going to go to the audience for Q&A in another 10 minutes. I still haven't finished, Trudy Jack. So, Jack, can you go a little granular into the skills that big tech companies are looking for in the ecosystem, and how can we harness this?
I mean, it's all. Let me not say big tech specifically. All companies are looking for developers, are looking for good product managers. In my world, that's what I understand. Now, there could be other places that someone here is saying, okay, Jack, they also look for this. I don't know. But in my world, those are the two rare talents that we're always looking for. So if you want to invest in something, if you want to invest in courses, if you want to invest in community, please invest in those areas. You'll always find a space in this world for you. Banks are looking for the same. And again, even I was speaking to one of the CEOs of one of the banks here, and he's struggling to hire a CIO. So he's asking me, should I go to India and hire CIO and then come here? Maybe there's someone here. You can send me your CV. You're a good CIO. I don't mind doing intros. Yeah, yeah, but it's a problem right now.
So,
but we can solve it, I think.
We're looking at companies like Africa Stocking investing back into the ecosystem to
absolutely.
create some of this talent and skill sets, and other companies and code accelerators doing this. But let's get into the heart of the details. What kind of skills are these? You talked about the hiring process at Google is that they look for smart people, the way you think. Say more about that, the skills, the competencies that are needed.
Yeah, so look, I mean, to be honest, if you're applying for a job, you already know that you have the skills. What they're looking for beyond the skills is the way you think a lot. So for example, they'll ask you a question like I remember one of my interviews. Let me think. Clement, what was your interview? What was your question that you asked? What practical question were you asked? Non-coding phase. Yeah.
Can we stand near the mic? Is the mic on, Clement? So the audience can hear you?
Yeah. Sorry to pull a suicide on you.
Yeah, so basically an example was like a time I was able to influence like product decision in the team, or something that I felt was needed in the product but was not thought of by the team. How would I influence them to adopt that? That's an example.
Okay. And then the coding, what was your practical coding question?
So one of them was to sort like to merge a collection of sorted streams into a single sorted stream.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you see there are two parts to it. So number one is your skill sets, which ideally you should, when you're going in there, you should already know them. And by the way, they're not complex, right? From what he has described. So it's those things you learned in first year. If you went to university, computer science, if you didn't, it's you see that first chapter you read in a book. Then you skip over. You say, this is rubbish. Let me go to the next one. That's the one they ask. That one. Even at my level, that's the first question they ask you. For example, one of the questions I was asked when I was joining Microsoft is about hash maps. If you understand hash maps, and why is it such a big deal? They didn't necessarily ask me to implement it, but they ask you that kind of question. And why is it a big deal? And why do you think it's not going to exist in quantum computing? I had no idea. but they appreciate the way you think. And then another question I remember I was asked is, and it was so funny because we just launched the the expressway. So the question I was asked is how do you build a system that will collect automatically toll fees from vehicles? Now, if you listen to that question, you have to think to yourself, it's a very simple question to answer. I mean, I will go and tell M-Pesa open a wallet, and then I put a pay bill. No, but they want you to say, I mean, ask them questions like, is this toll road going to be used by vehicles or cyclists or lorries or trucks? Is there going to be differential pricing off-peak, on-peak hours? They like that you're asking clarifying questions, as they call it, because you're thinking through the solution and you're thinking beyond just though you get a bottle of water and you put in water and you say this is alpine water. They want to think why is it that way? And so that sort of analytical thinking is what you need to cultivate. If you don't have it, or if you have it, keep going. You're in the right track. So even in your meetings at AIT or wherever, if your boss tells you something, don't argue back. What I'm saying is ask clarifying questions. Yeah. I don't want you to lose your job. Yeah.
Very interesting, and we are still going to build on that thread. Ask clarifying questions, critical thinking, digging deeper. Do we have a reading culture in Africa, in Kenya as a whole?
Well, we used to have one in primary and high school. See, we all did set books. and we got examined on
Well,
them.
we have a cram culture.
Yeah, true. Well, that's also true. Yeah, but I don't know if how many of us read books thereafter. How many people read one book a year? Okay, how many read 2 books a year? Okay,
How many read at all?
read above 5 books a year? Oh wow, this is impressive. So we kind of do, I think. Five beyond 5 books a year, it's the culture there.
Jack, what do you enjoy reading? Which book in particular?
So I have tons of books. I prefer the Kindle books because we don't have good. The bookshops here are quite expensive. So what am I reading right now? Let me see. So I have a Kindle. I don't read them on this because it's too small and I'm getting kind of older. So
What phone is that?
this is a Samsung.
Not a Pixel?
You see, I knew you were gonna say that. I knew. Hey, so I finished last week. I finished AI Superpowers. Has anyone read that book? AI Superpowers. AI Superpowers by so whoever asks the best question in this forum, I will send you a physical copy of that book.
What is the best question?
So I don't know. We'll vote. We'll vote. But so AI Superpowers is a really great book because it talks about how China developed in their tech industry. And those of you who are running startups or think you're running a startup, please read this book. Or you think about a business idea, please read this book. If you can't read the whole book, then read chapter 2. Only chapter 2. And you will see the way it's called AI Superpowers by Kai-Fu Lee. So if you Google it.
Kai-Fu Lee. If
Yeah.
you are in the AI space,
Not necessarily.
No,
Oh,
no,
the
no,
guy.
no, no.
Oh, you know him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's popular.
if you're in the AI space, you had better know Kai-Fu Lee.
Yeah.
If you don't,
Yeah.
gal, man, whoever, you don't know your trade.
So it's such an interesting story. You know the way these Chinese businessmen we see here, and we think they're so aggressive. They're actually aggressive because their home market is super aggressive. I mean, there's one place, I don't want to spoil the book for you, and I'm not a salesman for him, but there's one place he was talking about how the guy who did something called Meituan, which is the equivalent of Groupon, was competing with the guys of Tencent. And the guys of Tencent were getting upset that he was actually winning a little bit of market share more than him. So they actually sent cops to his office. He discovered that the cops were going to his office. He flew all the way to Hong Kong to chill out, to figure out what his next move is. And those guys are really gangster, the way they do their business. So that's why I can understand also when they come here, they're quite aggressive because their home market is equally aggressive. But yeah, read chapter 2. It's quite interesting. If you don't want to read the whole book, I like the last chapters because it also talks about what I said about trade-offs, in life. So he was diagnosed with cancer, and so at some point, but he's in remission now, and he was just talking about the things that were important to him, and why you should take some things important in life. So yeah, read it if you can. So I've read that and a few others, but yeah, that's the interesting one this year I think I've read. I also read a lot of Star Wars. So
Okay, interesting. What's the name of the longest book you've read?
I don't know. I mean, I've never kept tabs. You see, the problem with Kindle, it doesn't necessarily tell you the pages. It just tells you like where you are on that bar. So I'm not sure what's the longest I've read. I think one of the shortest is I know that Range. Range I think is the shortest.
Range,
Yeah,
right?
it's very short.
I would recommend Range for generalists in the space. It's a really good book to read. On average, how long does it take you to read a book?
Oh, it depends. I try to leave half an hour every day. I try. Some days I'm lucky. It goes to an hour, but most times half an hour. I try. I really do. And then I also download a lot of audiobooks, although that's not the same. But in traffic especially, because sometimes you just want to listen to something, and yeah. So audiobooks also, I like audiobooks. But the audiobooks are really cool. They're like movies now. It's not like someone is reading. Like, do you remember? Sam and I can identify in Conrad. You remember Hello Children? It's not like that. It's not just one person reading. They actually have sound effects and everything. So in your mind, you actually picture it. So you build it. So it's really cool.
All right. As we come to a close of this part, before we go to Q&A, Jack, what is your fondest dream for the ICT sector in Kenya, and how do we get there as a people?
Yeah. So first of all, I'll tell you what I hope is that one day there'll be someone amongst you who will be leading a product group in Google, Microsoft, somewhere. Leading, not taking orders from someone, leading. Okay? And for those of literally leading. And you have people in Israel, India, Japan, the US reporting to you. That's for me when I been in Microsoft and Google, that's what I hope will happen. And it's, I think to some extent it's happening already. There's some really good people who are already starting to build waves in that place. And then the second thing is really for us to develop this talent here, that it's world class. That when we talk about tech talent, someone says, I need to go to Nairobi or to Kenya to get this tech talent, man. That's like there, we always say, man, can we get some Indian developers? It'd be nice for someone to say, can we get some Kenyan developers here? That'd be awesome. And that's what I hope we can do.
How do we get there as a people?
I mean, it's everyone. It's all of us. I mean, we're just talking about it with this gentleman here, about how as an ecosystem, it can't be a Google problem or a Microsoft problem. It's everyone, It's an everyone problem. And we all have to pitch in. Safaricom, Equity, AIT, everyone has to be able to pitch in singly and together and move the ecosystem forward.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Jack Ngare on one-on-one with me, Jessica Colasso. Check out my website. It's me, jessicacolasso.com, for my music NFT. Of course, I'm going to promote myself. All right, we go to the Q&A session, and we'll start on my right-hand side.
Man.
We have Conrad right here. Please step up.
Conrad, and I paid you not to ask questions.
Bad luck. Mine is a very simple question.
Yeah.
My name is Conrad. I'm a friend of Jack Anunya a long time.
Yeah.
We've heard a lot about your successes, your career, but I'm curious about any one thing you felt that was a mistake that if you could go back, you would change professionally, I mean.
Oh, gosh. I tell you what, Conrad, that's a great question. Let me tell you, first of all, I have failed many times. Do you know the time when you actually sit down and say, I swear to God, I'm going to be fired today? And specifically when I was working for, there's a time I was in BT, and I actually crashed their DNS servers. I was so sure that day. You're a 20-something-year-old, and you've crashed one of the biggest telcos in the UK. They are DNS servers. Why? Because you thought you're so smart and you can do something a bit more optimized. And then you forget that there's so many dependencies associated with what you've just done. And so everything came down. And when the other engineers walk in, and then you own up, no one talks to you for like a whole week, because everyone had to mess up it was a long holiday. Everyone had to come back. Guys had booked holidays, I don't know, in France, I don't know where, and they're looking at you and they're like, seriously, man. And back then, we didn't have these remote things. You had to show up in the office. Oh man, that was really tough. So honestly, I have tons of them. I can write a book about all my failures. There's one product, I won't say which one, when I was in Equity. I sold it to the board, the group board. Everyone thought it was brilliant. When we released it, I think we only got like 5 downloads. And you're like, come on, man. I mean, what's wrong? This is a brilliant product. In fact, no. And those 5 downloads, I'm sure they are fraudsters. You're like, and so the next meeting, and so you're going for a board meeting, the next one, Hey. You try telling them other stories, that slide for that particular product, you skip through it really fast. You don't talk about it. Then someone says, oh no, just go back. And you go back, and then you have to eat humble pie. Like, look, I told you guys that this is gonna be a success, but to be honest, I miscalculated, and I didn't think it would not do very well. And look, you have that also taught me something, Conrad. One of the things it taught me was that, number one, always own up and say you can do better. You that night you'll sleep a lot better. then what is typically the case is you try and look for a scapegoat to crucify. So I could have easily have blamed my product managers, my sales managers, anyone. Any one of them, I could blame them and say they're the ones who do not know how to implement this thing. And then I crucify them. But the truth is you're honest with yourself and you say, dude, you miscalculated. And that night after you say it, people appreciate it. Sometimes there's a price to pay because then people doubt you after that. I'm telling you, it's not as good as I try to make it seem. After that, every single product I came up with, it had to go through some process. Because now, people are kind of like, okay, dude, you messed up. So they don't trust you as much, which is okay. Then the next one you do will come out okay. And then they'll go back to, people are very fickle. So they'll say, oh, this guy's a star. And then you're back again. So you have to do that. I mean, those of you who follow, like now, I'm surprised there's a team that's top of the table. I mean, they shouldn't be there though. But if you appreciate their journey, I mean, I don't support them, but you appreciate their journey. They have done a lot of missteps and they are where they are. So who are you not to be fallible? But just be honest. I mean, that's one advice I can give you. If you mess up, be honest with yourself first. Yeah.
Please come up to the mic if you have a question.
Good evening. My question was on, at a personal level, how did you know that...
Please introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry. My name is Bill.
What do you do?
I'm just fresh into the industry. I'm an engineer here. So my question is on a personal level, how did you know that Kenya was the right place for you? And also on an, maybe for, as you've said, these companies that had 7 years to start, like M-Pesa and Equity, a lot of maybe other startups may not have the privilege of waiting out such long periods of time for profit to start coming and so does it mean that for them their solutions, like what, given how unforgiving it is, should they wait out this phase of you people building the ecosystem for them to start, or is it possible to like take this chance and
So why Kenya? I mean, obviously, when you look, for me, it was a no-brainer. I mean, you look at, and also for a lot of these companies, it's a no-brainer because if you look at the powerhouses in Africa, you're talking about Egypt in the north, you're talking about Nigeria in the west, you're talking about Kenya in the east, and South Africa in the south. Now, obviously, there's certain infrastructural challenges you have to do in any of these countries, but Kenya is a logical choice for us. I mean, and for me, because I think the talent exists. It's easier to attract anyone from across the world to come and work in Nairobi here. So it was a logic, and it's not me even who made that decision. By the way, it's they are the ones who made those decisions. They said this is an easier place for us to get in, and then we understand the market because also. I'm not saying that at some point they will not go to Nigeria. I mean, to Rwanda, to Uganda, to Tanzania. They will, but you always need a base of operations, and then you move forward. So for me, that's also the same thing. The base of operations initially will be Kenya, and then you spread off to the rest of the other countries. And then to your question about startups, it's a very good question. I think. It's a hard thing. I think the best person to answer this is probably someone who has done it, like Sam. I mean, Sam, do you have a comment on that? I mean, and the question is how do you, because it takes time to build a company, right? Anything, talent, company, whatever. What if these companies and businesses do not have the capital to persevere these many years when they're not making money? And should they just give up and close shop, or what has been your experience? Because also I know you guys have gone through this journey before. And I think I wouldn't, and even Conrad as well, I think you guys are more in a better place to answer than I am. I think also the other thing people have to appreciate is that you can step the mic. So is also, having worked a lot with entrepreneurs, sometimes I think they got a lot of luck of how abrasive they can be, because they have had to make a lot of hard choices. My boss was an entrepreneur, so I can imagine why he's abrasive is because he had to cut down a lot of expenses, had to make a lot of hard choices, and even worse still, the best people who you're relying on one day come and tell you they have to leave. So I think we don't give enough credit to our entrepreneurs, especially the ones who fail. I think those are the people who I respect a lot, because it takes a lot to come out of that. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. Hi, I'm Anne Salim. I work as a product manager. Building the global team here in Kenya. Are you also focusing on customizing the global solutions to Africa market, or what's the perspective you take as a leader in this industry doing that?
Yeah. So for example, if you look at specifically Google, they're actually having jobs right now to customize search and Android, and soon they're going to be releasing a lot more services using vernacular languages in Africa. So don't be surprised one day you see Android in Kamba. I know, right? Yeah, I mean, don't be surprised, because that's where it's going. And a lot of I know there's this project that I was working on that was training what we call natural language processing. And so Africa has 2,000 languages. How do you get them all into our AI service so that when you're typing on Google Docs, if you type Nyaje, it should be able to tell you that's not the spelling of Nyaje. It's actually like this. So there are a lot of those interesting projects that are coming up right now. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Can you? Oh, geez. I'll have to work on this. I think I'm there now. On the optimal space.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Jason Ketman. I'm a venture capitalist helping various African startups within the region. I think that we share a lot of the same visions, that there's a very large and robust talent pool here that, given the right opportunities, that they could do a lot to really help the area. What's been interesting to me, and I was curious about your opinion on, coming from an outside perspective, is that some of these companies are doing really amazing things. And one in particular, when we look at the business operations, the bottom line of the impact of the business was about 10x in terms of, the impact to the business. And despite that, we're finding some resistance in adapting the technology, and I think it's due to skepticism and a lack of believability within the market. We wrote a case study. We, then use the reference. We say you can call him anytime. He'll validate that the numbers are accurate, right? And we're still encountering resistance. So we found some paths to alleviate that. But I would be very curious from your perspective, the challenges with technology adaptation and the strategies or ideas which may limit the resistance that comes with those ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I can feel the pain of that startup, and just like I gave the example of M-Pesa that took 7 years, even now that it's everywhere, clearly there is some inertia and friction that to gain scale of any company, and I've seen it across even from the companies we fund as Google and Microsoft, and my days at Equity. The agency banking that we talk about a lot that only picked up within 6 years. So you can clearly see, at least if you look at analysis of this market, you have to have staying power of at least a minimum of 6 years, if you ask me. And it's knocking on doors. You keep going. A lot of startups, I think, have a promise positive EBITDA in year 3. Conrad, did you do that? A lot of them do that, and I've seen tons of decks, and now even with my role at Google, I see tons of them. And for sure there will not be positive EBITDA within year 3. It'll take you 5 years minimum to crack this market, especially if you're going to be removing an incumbent process. And here, not an incumbent player, an incumbent process that people are already used to. And so that takes some time. And so the VC funds, I'd say that a minimum of 5 years to get the technology adopted would be a more reasonable time frame. And that's at the Kenyan market. Now, if you go to other markets outside Kenya, if you're talking about Tanzania, Uganda, that even increases even more. And I've seen like one company that we funded in Rwanda has been at it for 8 years. And their user base is less than 1,000. And they promised 80,000. So you have those challenges that exist. Having said that, an easier route that I've seen a lot of companies take is partnering with existing organizations that already have the scale. So, for example, if I'm gonna do like this buy now pay later service, I will partner with Safaricom and Equity Bank. Then I will get the scale, rather than me go direct to the customers and try and organically acquire them. And that has been my observation.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hello everyone.
Yeah.
My name is Collins, a student, computer science student. I have a question. Have you ever thought of building a startup, and what was it like?
So I have. I've funded a few startups. I don't think I have the mettle of this gentleman here. This is a special breed, but I have invested in a few startups, to be honest. Just simply because some of them I actually don't even think they will make money, but I like the founders, and yeah, sometimes you have to believe in some people, and so I didn't invest in yours, Clement, because I didn't like it. I'm just kidding. Yeah, but I haven't. But maybe one day I will. Do you have an idea? We can partner. I can be your co-founder. Okay, I'm just kidding. Okay, cool. Right.
Okay, so my name is Emmanuel Blyton Awor. I'm a student at Strathmore University, studying marketing and having an interest in IT. So definitely to the audience, I'm a free agent. In case you need a marketer, holler at me, please. I'm sure I can be of benefit to you. So the main question I'm going to ask is around patience, isn't it? Because one of the questions that was raised was that Generation Z doesn't have patience, isn't it? And that's the truth, because right now, as I'm standing here, I'm thinking of an idea to get that bag. That's the legit thing, isn't it? But what is a recipe to, if you're talking about patience, could you give us like Generation Z? Because we've heard this and it's becoming like an insult to us that we don't have patience, isn't it? And we kind of feel like, what is the recipe to this patience? Because we also want to feel like we want to belong to the society, you see, but with the aspect of being told that you're not patient, to wait for your turn, but I have the skills, so when is my turn coming?
Yeah. You're so right. Stereotyping a bunch of people is not really the best way of going through things. I think everyone's an individual, and I agree with you. It's wrong for us to stereotype. When us older folks were younger like you know what they used to say? You're the future leaders. Like, if the future is not today, when is it? So again, it's a tendency of the existing people to kick the can down the street and say your opportunity will come next year or the year after, etc. And you're right to be impatient, by the way. I'm all for being impatient. What I mean is, when we say about patience, it's putting the work and seeing the results over time. And sometimes you could be lucky that it actually happens, like you're an overnight success. It can happen. I don't mean to say that it can't happen. I mean, someone like, for example, Facebook, it's a good example. They, in many standards, were an overnight success. Okay, forget the parts where he took some time to grow it, but when he came out of university, I mean, it caught fire really fast. So it is possible that you can be an overnight success. But the only thing is that if you look at a graph, where the normal distribution graph, right? So you have people who are the majority here, who it takes time. Then you have some outliers on both sides. Some it takes extremely long time, some it takes extremely short time. But all we're saying is that the majority of people will probably take some time, an average amount of time to be successful. And so that's pretty much what I'd say for you. And well done for being marketing. If you ask me, in marketing, I spoke to Professor Ogutu, and I told him that he needs to teach more of Google AdWords and Facebook boosting of posts to you marketing students. I've done a couple of interviews and from a lot of universities, not just Strathmore alone. But if I ask them, can you help startup X boost AdWords and make a post go viral on Twitter, they just don't have the basics of it. So if you're in a bias of IT, you're in the right place. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let the lady go. Let's have a lady.
Hello, my name is Akula. I am a project manager. So I have 3 questions for you. They could be related. So one, the people that have been hired by big tech, like Microsoft and Google, where you worked before, the Kenyans, do you, can I say, how do I say this? Do they match up to like the non-Kenyans? Because from, I think what I've heard is this comparison, like, so the non-Kenyans are the standard. Of course, like, you know, the countries, the Americas, of course, they're coming here. So is that like the measure of how we are looking at talent here? Is that a good way to look at it? The second thing, probably related, so I guess the general feel here for this question is, what part does culture have to play in this talent, I guess, coming up from the continent? The second thing is, how do you become the best in a generalist culture? So I have had an opportunity to work in Germany for a bit, and they are very highly specialized. Like, you don't just find people, you know, in our country, I think you'd be working in a startup and you're doing 10 different things, and you have skills at everything. So you grow in breadth, but not in depth. So how do you become like the best in a very generalist culture? And then finally, do you think the government is doing enough to support the potential of this ecosystem?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, those are great questions. Okay. So the first question you ask around, you know, benchmarking Kenyans versus non-Kenyans, I don't think it really is that. I think, again, it's just one of those labels we put when we're hiring, or when, at least when you're trying to say. So it's a label. Let's call it that. You know, so we look at an industry or a country like India and the US, and where computer science is not a new field. I mean, they have been, the US has been doing computer science since the 20s. You know, they have, from all those machines you learned in first year about the Babbage machine, you know, etc., going onwards to the mechanical devices, to all the way to the electronic devices. So they've been doing, there's a lot of generational knowledge that has been passed down, and can-do attitude. That, hey, my uncle actually used to work for IBM back in the 60s, and he came up with this, and so you feel like you're, okay, now I can also do it, I can, you know, there's that believability. You know, there's a reason why we are really good at marathon. Not that we're not skilled, but we are very skilled. But, you know, we have psych as Kenyans. We know when we go for a marathon, there's nothing else we are winning. We're winning this thing. So, you know, that mentality we already have, we win it. You know, it's not that other countries are not equally as good. Maybe they are, but we have that mentality that we're going to win it. I should tell you guys a funny story about marathons, by the way. Can I say for 2 minutes a story about marathons? So when I was in Boston, I went for this marathon. Not the Boston Marathon, it's for the university. And I wore my Kenya t-shirt. Okay? Yeah. Mistake number one. So I check in. And the next thing I know, the organizers are already pushing me to the one lady came and took me and said, "Excuse me, sir, come." So she took me to the front. So I'm like, I didn't know it was a big deal. So then the next thing I see, the cameraman keeps going, and then he comes back to me. He's like this. And you know, I'm dumb, so I can't really see that he's actually focusing more on the Kenya and then the whole outfit that I had for Kenya. So this guy knew this guy is gonna win this thing. And back then I was kind of skinny, so they knew this guy's gonna win this thing. So then it hit me. Wait a minute, and then I'm seeing the guys next to me are looking at me, and you know they're doing their warm ups. They keep looking at me. Me, I was just standing there, like, you know. Okay, so gun goes. So now before that I figured out now the reason why. It's because of the Kenya T-shirt. So I keep telling the camera guy like go away. You know, and I want to kind of sneak out. And so I actually did sneak to the second row. And the lady came again and took me to the front row. So the gun goes, oh, man. First kilometer, I put everything into it. You know, I put like I stepped on the gas. You know, I just went. And so I was not doing too badly. But you know, after a while, you know, when you put too much into it, you get tired, right? So second kilometer, I'm seeing people passing. Third kilometer, even guys who just don't look fit were passing me as well. You know, you know. And I remember the cameraman. He was sitting at the back of a motorcycle, and he just looked at me. He just did, and then he went. You know. Oh man, I felt so embarrassed. I was like, how do I find a way out of here? Is there a Starbucks I can just enter in and pretend I was just sitting here all the whole time? Yeah. Anyway, embarrassing story. But anyway, to answer your question, yeah. So there's that mentality that you have that you can do, and so that's why you find that when you benchmark with those places, because we know that they have had a history of doing really amazing engineering work, and so we kind of benchmark them as okay, as Kenyans, how are we doing vis-a-vis those people? You know, it's kind of like just a label thing that we do for comparison. It's not really, it doesn't mean that a Kenyan engineer here is any less qualified or less skilled than someone sitting in Silicon Valley or in India, Chennai, or in China. It doesn't mean that at all. It's just something that we put as something that we need to become better as. The second question you asked was around so the book we just described with Jessica about range actually talks about that, and it's something that even developed countries struggle with, that you have so many people who are specialists and you don't have people who have end-to-end view of things. So from a global perspective, it actually is a discussion that's going on. Do we need more specialists, or do we need people who understand more things across board? And there's no right answer. I think there are certain things. For example, the guy who's going to, let's say, who's going to do surgery like I did a few months ago on my shoulder. He's a specialist for shoulders. Now, will I go to a guy who's just generally a surgeon, or a guy who knows shoulders? Then you prefer that. So, I think it's a very subjective question. I don't have an answer one way or another. Do we need more engineers who are specialists, let's say, in building AI solutions and TensorFlow and PyTorch, etc.? Yes, we do. And they only understand that. Because if we get stuck, we want to call those guys to come and sort us out. But all companies would probably need someone who understands things a little bit more and then drill in on specialists. And doctors are the same way. And lawyers are the same way. You have constitutional lawyers right now who are specialists in constitutional law. But if you want a guy to bail you out of prison when you get caught drunk, Clement, don't call a constitutional lawyer. Just call a normal guy. So that's what I think. So I don't know. I haven't answered your question, but I see pros and cons on both sides. Having a market skew towards generalists and having a market skew to specialists. I see pros and cons on both sides. You asked me the third question, which was government. Okay, so that's a great question. So I think they need to do more. Simple answer. They absolutely need to do a lot more. They have made progress. But for a developing country, we need more practical skills and marketable skills. It doesn't help to open a course for the sake of opening a course because you want to meet your quota of absorbing students into your university. With every single course, there has to be a cost that's associated with it. Like the way, I think the ones they got right was especially in things like medicine and engineering. But even then, it's kind of gone down. Then when you're going to teach people computer science, for example, which I understand, you must understand that you need computers. You need to buy them, subscriptions to cloud services. You need to get the relevant materials for them to use it because this is university, all right? You're not doing high school where you can be all over the place. You have to invest more. And the courses that are not marketable, shut them down immediately. And I think that's what the reforms that are happening right now, from what I've heard, are going into. An interesting story in the UK, universities get funding from the government based out of the number of students who get jobs and start their businesses. So if you churn out people who are not accepted by the market, then I'm sorry, we're not going to fund you. You need to do better. And so there's always this competition of becoming better. And I think we need to do a lot more of that. And I personally, I'm not one to speak about this, but I think we need more people who are biased towards building than we are towards things like, and I'm not saying it's bad. Please don't write Jack said bad things about people who do humanities. Please do humanities. But we need more builders in this country. I mean, we can't have dams and roads and bridges being built necessarily, and we don't learn how to do them ourselves. At some point, we need to, right? I mean, I don't think anyone disagrees about that. So we just need more builders than we do, humanities, I think. Please don't tweet that.
All right, we'll have another 10 minutes of Q&A, and then I'll invite Africa's chief storyteller, Teddy Warrior, here to introduce another guest from Google, but please come up.
Hello, Jack. Hey. Hello, everyone. My name is Mui Nehikari. I'm a product lead at Kanza Finance. I wanted to ask, from your perspective as working with Google Cloud, what do you think about decentralized storage systems such as IPFS, and how long do you think it would take for the market to appreciate that fully?
Okay.
Thank you.
So if you don't mind, can you give a little bit background about decentralized so that everyone is on the same? Yeah.
Okay, so like decentralized storage is talking about you see this the way you have Google Cloud. It's a little bit decentralized, but it's mostly centralized at the Google database houses, you know.
Correct.
But decentralized storage means you have millions of nodes across the world storing the same information, and the retrieval process is a lot cheaper.
Right.
So I just want to know if there's any foreseeable headway for that to make way into the market.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that you asked that question. One of the projects I worked on last in Microsoft was how do you make use of not necessarily storage, but more of processing power? Because right now, all of us are sitting here, right? Your laptop or your computer, wherever it is probably idling right now, I suspect. It's not doing anything right now. What if we could use that processing power and you get some sort of credits or get paid whenever each time we use your machines? And so that's a decentralized way. What he's talking now, the next version, which is now the actual storage. We use maybe not necessarily your laptop storage device, but perhaps certain devices sitting in certain data centers across the world, and they all have a piece of the information, and then they are put back together when you request for it. So you can imagine if we had a file and it's stored in AIT and it's stored down the road, rather than it going all the way to Google Cloud in US Central, it's sitting right next to you here. And so, there are two thoughts I have about that. Number one is that the thought process behind it is what has powered a lot of this decentralized computing that has happened. And it's just natural that it's going to go to storage as well at some point. But the question then becomes is, what are the impediments or constraints you'll have to work under? Number one is, like Bitcoin and all the others that have been mined across the world, is cost of power, cost of storage, cost of compute. Who's willing to take on that responsibility? And number three is, what kind of assurances do you provide the owners of that information that it's actually, bona fide, legit, etc. And of course, there's ways of doing that. Right. But those are concerns across. And then who are the people who are qualified to do that and who are not? So, for example, would you accept that someone sitting in the Ministry of Transport can actually use this service to store government documents across? Because of sovereignty, data privacy, etc. Those are the things of the new age that we have to just grapple with. But as a technology, overall, I think it's just natural progression. It's going to happen. I mean, the question is, at what scale will it happen? That's the thing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, so Dorcas. I have a question to you on pivoting and imposter syndrome. So you particularly mentioned that if you are in a field and you feel like maybe you should do a pivoting to tech or something like that, how do you deal with how do you deal with imposter syndrome, for example? Because I did some pivoting and maybe did something with software engineering, and then you go to maybe you do a job or somewhere you like, maybe for example I went and maybe I worked at ADC and then I meet someone like Clement who's really good, and then like you're like, okay, how do you deal with such things? Because I actually met Clement and he was asking hard questions.
Clement, you see the bad things you do, they always come to haunt you. No, look, when I said imposter syndrome is a way for you to become better. Someone please help her. So it should be a way for you to become a lot better at what you do. I mean, take it positively. I mean, the questions he asked you, I'm sure you reflected back on them and said how you can improve on them. So you can do that. Look, I always use this analogy. There's this guy who we were hiring at Microsoft, and you may know him, who thought he was the best. I met him at one of these forums. He came and saw me, and then he said, "Jack, I know this technology really well. I'm a kick-ass developer. I'm this," and I said, "Awesome. Let's set up an interview for you." And so we set up an interview for him, and I the way he described what he can do, it was partly my fault. I should have done a little bit more questions. I thought he would be actually a senior level engineer. I didn't think he was supposed to enter as an entry level engineer, even though he was very young. He was I think he was like 20, 24 maybe. So I said, this guy, the way he described himself, must be a senior engineer. Just that he's young, so it's okay. Let him go. So he went for senior engineer role. And man, that interview, it really butchered him. I mean, I was reading the notes. I didn't myself attend it, but I read the notes, and man, he really got it. And so I called him, and I said, "How did the interview go?" "Oh, perfect. They love me, man." You know. Mwanaume ni effort. So he was like, "They loved me. I think I should expect the offer letter, in a week's time." So I was like, "Dude, you better come and see me." I had office hours on Thursdays, so I told him, "You come and see me on Thursday. I have office hours." So he came to see me, and I told him, "Dude, they're not gonna send you an offer letter." That's the first thing. The next thing is that, and he could see you're shocked. I was like, no. I mean, look, it was my fault mostly, but do you understand the questions they asked? "Yeah, and I asked them." I said, no, did you understand the questions they asked? And we went through each question and asked him, "Answer me back." And then he answers, and I said, "No, that's not the question they asked you. You're answering the question that they didn't ask you. This is what they meant." And I could see he was like, okay. And it's some of these experiences you go through, that, like I said, imposter syndrome, missing an interview, also should be building blocks towards you getting something else in the future. And keep trying. I mean, but learn. The most important thing is that you learn from what came out of it. Don't be delusional. Always learn. And you'll be fine. You'll be fine. We always use this word in the tech industry. Those of you who went to schools, public schools or whatever schools you went to, there's this guy who's probably the best footballer or the best runner in your school. Then when he went to nationals, what happened to him? Huh? You guys stop cheering for the guy. You're like, so there's always going to be someone better than you. But the idea is to learn and do better all the time. So please go apply again. Leave Clemo alone. Just apply. Cool.
Jack, you mentioned something about don't be delusional. Sometimes we as human beings experience this. And have you experienced it?
Of course.
And how do you get out of it? You normally call it delusions of grandiose.
Yeah. No, I mean, sometimes you're just stuck in what you know, and sometimes it's not bad, right? I mean, if you look at the people who achieved a lot in life, if you read the book by Steve Jobs, I mean, you call that guy delusional, for real. But out of his 10 delusions, I think one worked. One worked. So it's okay to be sometimes delusional. Just don't be overly delusional over all the 10 things and you insist that all those 10 things must work. One of your delusions will work. But at the same time, also, be humble enough to accept that they don't. Like I think some said, the market will tell you, and your interviewer will tell you, and someone else will tell you, and you also have to make a choice. Do I continue my delusion, or do I actually stop and decide now that I can actually do something else? But it's okay sometimes to be delusional about something. I mean, we're just talking with Sam because he grew up in the village like me, and we're like sometimes you look and you think to yourself, you're working for Microsoft or Google, and you're like, hey, was it those days I used to push that thing? Would I have ever thought you'd have reached at this level? You'd have been like, no, because you always thought you're gonna own a what do you call it? A canter that's gonna bring cabbages to Nairobi. That was a joke. Laugh. Cool. Cool. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
The game you mentioned, tire.
Yeah.
It's just come to my mind. It's
Yeah.
actually a tire, and
Yeah.
then you get 2 sticks.
Yeah.
And you're pushing it as a
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
Huh? Me? Oh, I never did that, but I saw kids doing that, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting."
Yeah, she saw us doing it.
I was like, "What are these kids doing?" But anyway, yes, it is part of our African culture, so let's embrace it. Being humble, coming from our roots. Let's not forget that. Let's have at least 3 more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. And then I'll invite Teddy Warrior, Africa's Talking's chief storyteller.
Good evening. I think sometimes, as direct as some things may seem, sometimes common sense isn't as common. So, what are some steps or measures that someone can take to prepare, say, for example, for a pitching or for an interview, or as they want to go into a certain space career wise? What are some things they can like say, okay, for example, in composition writing, you need to have the intro, the body, and then the ending paragraph. What are some guiding points that are always there that we need to make sure we meet? And then, so 3 questions. That's the first. The
Yeah,
second is, what does an outlier look like in Kenya, in Africa, and globally in the tech space? And what are this is the third question, what are some things that are tried and true in a formula that people can implement and work on to get to that level?
Okay, so I can take the first one.
What is her name? What does she do?
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
My name is Mona Abebe. I am currently a student and working as an apprentice. I am very interested in the tech and fintech space and community. I had a fintech startup a couple of years ago, so now it's trying to reassess, rebuild, and then push forward, seeing how to best help the Kenyan space and market.
Thanks, Mona. Jack, before you answer that question, I just have a bit of some operational admin announcement. The owner of KCQ989Q, KCQ989Q, is that you, Jack?
Yeah, that's me.
Can somebody move the car for you? All right. Thanks for the car, Jack.
You're welcome.
All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, that's embarrassing. But anyway, so
Maybe
so
go take your car for a spin. I'm just kidding.
yeah, so the question you asked around, just do your homework for a pitch deck or for a yeah, so they have to have a valid driver's license. Okay. No. Yeah, so my heart is beating right now. So yeah, so anyway, you have to just do your homework, and then don't underestimate the power of a community. So if you're in the fintech space, you're going for a pitch, you're going to the PE fund guys, or the fund managers, always reach out to the community and figure out who else has done work or has pitched with them. So then you do your homework. I mean, of what the things they look out for, what are the things they like, even including interviews. Reach out to Clement on if you're doing one for Microsoft, ask him what kind of questions, how do they do it, watch YouTube videos, some of them are there. So just do your homework. That's all. I mean, there's no one. I can't tell you like there's an intro and this and this and this, because I mean sometimes they really are not that structured. But if you find out from 6 different people, for example, you'll find some commonality of how they do their thing, and so that's the best way of doing it. And then the last thing, when you go for your pitch or for your interview, relax. Relax. And it's a marathon, it's never a sprint. So it doesn't mean that you answered question 1 wrong, the whole exam is marked as 0. That's not the case. In fact, you could actually answer a lot of the questions wrong and still get the job. So never panic. Always just relax. I see a lot of guys in interviews, man, they're so tense. Yeah, I mean, you just relax. It's not that. And then if you don't make it the first time, I think after a couple of I think a month or 2, you're always allowed to apply back again. So just always just relax. Don't be too tensed up about it. And do your homework. And then the second thing you asked was around an outlier. Okay, so it's all specific to the industry. I mean, an outlier has, in my books, has two things. At least when I look at outliers, number one, they have the skill sets, and number two, they have a brilliant attitude. Those are outliers. You know, if you have both, that you're willing to collaborate with other people, you're willing to admit that when you make a mistake, you're willing to seek advice when you need to, and you reach out to others and help others. You know, those are outliers for me, and those are the people who, in my books, get a lot more rewards than, you know, just being a great coder, for example. You know, you have to show that you have the right attitude as well and the right value system. So those are outliers for me. The last question was answered? Okay, cool. Right. You're welcome.
Titus.
Speaking to the mic.
Yeah, I hope I'm clear. My name is Titus. I am an ICT student at the Kamkwamba Institute of Science and Technology by day, and a front-end developer at night. What is one product that you have ever built or been part of the production team, and you felt you are not really celebrated, or you didn't get to know that Jack was involved in building this product? And the second question, how long will it take Google to adapt to the Web3 web architecture?
Okay. So those are heavy-hitting questions. So the first one is, what's the one thing that I feel I wasn't given enough credit for? I think when you're a junior engineer, you know, there are lots of interesting things you do, but you never get the credit for. So there are many of them. I can't think of any. Which is the one that pissed me off the most? Let me see. Back when I was younger. Okay. So I contributed to the library for JavaCard. You know JavaCard? So I did that many years ago, and the guy who actually posted the commit was my boss. So I was so pissed off because now it's used in, and so those of you who don't know JavaCard, you know what powers your SIM card right now? And bank, that chip you see there, most likely it's running JavaCard. The Safaricom SIM cards are running JavaCard as their applet for M-Pesa and a lot more. So back then we didn't even know that was what it's going to be used for. It was just something that we were doing as a POC, and we found it interesting. So the guy who actually did the commit was my boss, and so and everyone was like, "Wow, this is so awesome." Okay, now the service is deprecated, so good for him. But yeah, I think that was one of the things that pissed me off the most, especially when I came back home and I found out that everyone uses it. I was like, "Oh man, if my name was there, I've been telling guys, hey, look, my name is here." But yeah, anyway, it is what it is. The second question was, remind me. Oh, Web3.
Yeah, Web3.
Okay, so we have started. It's I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it, but I think a lot of tech companies. Let me speak broadly because I may not necessarily answer you directly on that. But a lot of tech companies have started task forces to actually sort of not only upgrade their infrastructure and their way of doing things to Web3, but also provide the necessary tools for those who are building on Web3 to be able to leverage our capabilities. So if you talk about GCP Cloud, having a whole offering for Web3, etc. So I think it's a journey right now, and you can imagine to pivot, or no, let me call it, it's not a pivot, to actually move towards Web3 is a journey that takes a number of years, and a lot of engineering effort. So I think that's something that probably I'm sure if you Google, there's probably some white paper written by someone who's talking about how we are moving towards Web3. I don't have it right, but if I find it, I can probably forward it to Jessica, and she can share it with you. Yeah.
One last question from the audience. Interact with Jack later. Let him.
Okay, sure.
Comment later. Come up. Come.
So I can't be an MC.
Good evening once again.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Tom. I work in sales and marketing, and I have a startup. So one of the things I've struggled with the startup is creating a team. I had a startup which failed because the team I had at that time, they kind of got, let me say, quote unquote, jobs, and they left me hanging. So I said I'll never repeat that mistake again. So I'm always wondering, how do you create a team that believes in the idea and start working on it, so that at least when you pitch, you have something viable? Because I don't like comparing ourselves to Silicon Valley, because when you go to Silicon Valley, if you have an idea, people just jump into it and start, helping you out. Like, that's how it grows. But here we don't have something similar to that. So it's either I'm paying the developers or I do it myself, and I'm not, my background is computer science, by the way, but I shifted to marketing a bit. So I'm not a pro coder per se. But I'm always thinking, how do you create a team that can be working on that product for some time? Because as you said, I understood I really liked the idea that a business can take even 5-7 years, or rather a product to fruition. So I already understand that. So I need people that can be working on it slowly by slowly, and So I've always wondered, is there a way to create such a team and people can just believe in the idea and work together? Thanks.
Yeah, so obviously I'll answer a part of it, and I think also, Sam, I think you can contribute a little bit onto this question, because you've actually lived it. But I'll tell you what, the people issue is a problem. It's a challenge across everyone, including even big tech companies like us. We lose people every day. I mean, I came from somewhere, right? I mean, so yeah, ha ha ha. So you find people is a challenge. I think from the few startups that I've interacted with and the ones that I'm involved in, having the right sort of mindset of your founding team is important. That they buy into the idea, they believe into it, and they're co-owners of it all. Now, I know we don't have a huge culture here of offering stock options to employees. Very few companies do. But that could be a way of getting buy-in, that, look, if you invest in it, you're part of you're in the CR12, your name is there. Okay? And you own part of it. Because I'm sure you can't afford, as a startup, you'd rather invest more of your money into growing the product than to pay people salaries. I'll default back to the person who I learned a lot from in terms of business, and that's Dr. Ngare. And I remember the time when they couldn't pay salaries back then in the 90s. He said that he offered everybody, including suppliers, stocks of equity building society. He offered them stocks, including suppliers, to continue giving suppliers, because if they didn't, there was no salaries to be paid. There was no supplies that are gonna get. So he offered them shares, and a lot of them, because it was a community bank then, accepted it. Now, story goes that the people you see right now who are worth billions, because the stock has appreciated 35,000 times from the 90s, 35,000, are the guys who put in 100K, who are, because they're being paid maybe 20K back then, and so they're not being paid for 4 or 5 months. They said, okay, I'll leave my 100K inside their stocks, and now that's what they're worth. And so it's quite interesting to see that. I don't think there's one size fits all. For your situation may be different, but buying into the vision and having strong co-founders is so important, and especially in the core areas, that you have someone. You don't have to give everyone stock options. Obviously, it's just the persons who you think are critical and for the success of this. It can't be you alone. And I think that's what my advice would be. And then at the same time, also just keeping the culture really, really friendly to them, because they're sacrificing a lot to be there with you. Sam, I don't know what else.
All right. Young man, do you know why I said comment later? I want you to talk to Jack directly. I want you to interact with him. Make that effort. Jack has offered. If you're the best, reach out to him. Don't sit on opportunities, please, please, please. And I cannot stress this enough. People sit on opportunities right in front of them. The opportunities are there and then they will never come back. When an opportunity is right in your face, be aware, be self-aware. Notice them. Self-awareness is the best thing you can actually have as a human being. And my friend and mentor Teddy Warrior has shown me how to do that. So do not sit on opportunities. Listen, active listening, and being aware. There are so many opportunities that have been mentioned in this crowd tonight, in this audience. More than 20 opportunities for everyone in this room. I hope you have taken note of at least one or two of those opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jessica Colasso, tech entrepreneur and musician and public speaker. My NFT is right there. It's me, jessicacolasso.com. On my Instagram, Jessica Colasso. On my Twitter, if you want to know more about my journey in music and entrepreneurship. Some of the nuggets that I can summarize for tonight, and these are my own learnings. Jack's philosophy. Be humble, and hard work pays. It goes a long way. Another thing is you need to believe in yourself and be the best. He's told us the stories of how he actually had imposter syndrome. And actually that's something that we need to embrace as human beings, because that's you undergoing a metamorphosis of becoming the next best version of yourself. So embrace it. We need a reading culture on this continent, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot stress it enough. We need to create content. We need to create literature. We need to read the literature of our own local authors in this country and on this continent. Create a reading culture among yourselves. Book clubs. Read anything. Science. Literature. Romantic. No matter what it is, let's read. If you need a recommendation list, there are many people here who have read books, at least 5 books in a year, right, Jack? Let's read. Let's keep that critical thinking and analysis going on. Let's build ourselves as people, as human beings, and let's build a community and let's build our ecosystem. Let's tell our own stories, right? Right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't sound too sure, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yes. All right. Another thing is believe in yourself. Really, really, really believe in yourself. I think when James Mwangi approached you and told you to run FinServ, you were like, am I capable of doing this, right? So believe in yourself. Give yourself that chance that you can do it, because others see it in you, but give yourself that chance. And I'd like to ask mentors, coaches out there, people who are building the ecosystem, give the young people, the Gen Zs, a chance as well. They need us to coach them. They need our time. Spend time with them and give them the opportunities. Not only Gen Zs, upcoming professionals as old as Jack and I, and older, need that type of coaching. And just that group we call them a tribe. that we can get advice from. It's only from each other that we will learn locally, building local solutions, coming up with local advice. This community will not build itself. We will build each other as a village and a tribe. And then I cannot stress enough. Please be curious. Ask questions. If you're told, please open the screen and open that website, and you don't even ask why. Please set up the mic here and set it up that way. You don't even ask why. Keep on asking why, because it really helps you in your future life. Like as Jack said, big tech companies and companies, I am in the talent space. We're looking at how people problem solve. You have the hard skills, but how do you problem solve? If you just put the chair there and I'll be like, okay, earlier there was no problem solving. Everyone is sitting around that table and I'm like, Jack is here and you're facing him sideways. I'm like, yo, that's not cool. Come sit here. Yeah? That's a simple example. It's like, why are they sitting there? The audience is here. I cannot, and this is my personal advice, I cannot emphasize on being your best every time you do something. Incompetency is a pet peeve for me. I'm sorry to say so. And I'm like, every single time you do something, think of what was done well, what could have been done better, and how you can improve the negatives. Always improving on what you can do. And for the young people that are in the audience, and also people who are thinking of a career path, this is my way of, as an ecosystem leader, of paying it forward. I would like to give you advice on how to interview for companies like Google, Microsoft, Safaricom, and the rest of companies like Africa is Talking, startups, because I've been in this ecosystem for almost close to 15 years, and I can see what leaders are actually looking for. So if you need advice on what next, how to tackle an interview, please reach out to me. My Twitter handle is Jessica Colasso. My first name and then my last name, Colaco. And my email is jessicacolasso@gmail.com. I am more than willing to have a coffee chat with you. I'm giving you this opportunity. How many people reach out? That's up to you. I leave it to you. As I mentioned, almost 25 opportunities have been presented at this forum today. And with that, I'd like to invite Teddy Warrior, Africa's Stocking's chief storyteller. Please give him a round.
I'm amused Jessica is emphasizing on the chief, because maybe there are sub-chiefs and others and all that. But thank you. I'm delighted to be here today. I just came from hospital, and Jessica visited, and some provided. so I'm thankful for that. But let me say a brief thing. Ngare, when you say your name Ngare, it amuses me because I also used to live next to David Anunda, Msewa Safo. And David Anunda always used to become number last, time barred all the time. So my friend Alex Nyingi there used to be my neighbor in Buruburu, and every single time we were rooting for David Anunda, but he was always time barred. Do you understand? Amalizi Safo. See that? So I want to say the first time I heard about Google, the name Google, a friend of mine called Nathaniel Choge sent me an invite to get a Google account. So I was very delighted about that. I was in the US when they first started. But I'll quickly go to a young African man called William Kamkwamba. How many of you know William Kamkwamba? So because of time, I'll just say what he did. He created a windmill using scrap material from his village in Malawi. So this is a remarkable village story because I also believe in the idea of building villages. If you noted, Sam said he came from a village. Ngare said he came from a village somewhere. So it seems there's something intrinsic in African villages, which people don't take advantage of, and that's where 75% of us come from anyway, and live as Africans. So there's something very interesting he said. When he was asked, what is Google? He asked, William Kamkwamba asked, is Google an animal? Because he had never heard of that before. You see that? But right now he's an engineer. He's a New York Times best-selling author. He was one of the pioneering students of the African Leadership Initiative Academy, where our former CEO is actually the boss. So I want to even just point out to the importance of community, because Jess was talking about community, but it's also a healthy community that all of us can build. So for my friend who is back there, his name is Alex Nyingi. But before I say that, I wanted to say two things I got from Google. When, in the earlier days of Africa Stalking, our mentor used to be one CS Joseph Mosheru. And whenever he was the first and probably then the only Google employee in Africa. So when we would go to his office, apart from giving us Google swag, which I thought, Ngare, you're bringing for us, he would always tell us, less is, just listen to this. He'd always tell us, less is more. Do you follow that? So it's a very basic Google principle, less is more. Because if you ask an African, I'm also an African, to write a small letter, somebody wants to ask you for, say, $100 or 10,000 shillings. They'll write for you 2 pages worth of an email. Then at the end, they said, could you give me 10,000 or 100? Meaning they have wasted your time. But some has an idea, even from the early days, because here you're speaking about depth instead of breadth. So some believes in the idea of depth. In other words, specialization. So in the earlier days of the company, they would ask, some of the other leaders would ask something, then some would say, oh, let just Teddy do what he needs to do. Essentially, it's important for the talent to do what they are built to do, so that we can build a more powerful and robust ecosystem and country. So, Ngare, what I'd ask you, if you allow me, the nuggets that you said very many important things, but I'm not able to summarize them now. I'll invite you to be in a book called Spirit of Africa, because you share the essence of what is truly African. You went to the States, but you came back home to build Africa. You see that? That's a very important thing that as many kids as possible need to know. And for my material reason why I came here, so my neighbor from the time I was a child is called Alex Nyingi. And in Swahili, Nyingi means many or a lot. But in Luo, a lot means vegetables, which have been instructed with the doctors to eat a lot of. So Alex Nyingi is the Emerging Markets Public Affairs Manager, Government Affairs and Public Policy, GAPP, at Google. Seems you guys like very long titles. So here, I'm just the chief storyteller, and I think that's very definitive. And by the way, since he went also to a school abroad, Sam went to a school abroad, whenever I was helping people apply to college in the US, almost 20 years ago, I always used to tell him, keep it super simple, or the thicker the file, the thicker the student, so the admissions board in the other schools, not in a bad way, not that I'm insulting people, but if you write for me so many things, people want summarized things so that they can, because they're looking through almost 10,000 applications. So for the ones who have been offered by Jessica here, if she's offered to coach you in terms of how to write your CVs or how to go for interviews, please take her up on that. My own mantra in life is carpe diem, and carpe diem means seize the day or seize every moment. And because some of the nuggets too that he spoke about, he actually spoke about very deeply profound things that I'll actually summarize what he said so that I can share with anybody of you who wants. And because he kept on insisting on the idea of learning. But he also said in a certain company, people were given equity or stock. So I was one of the people in the earlier days when Sam and Essen began the company. I was also given stock. And I don't think probably myself and Graham were too poor because of the stock that we were given. So we invested in his dream, but also he invested in our lives. It's a very important thing because the Swahili say, mkono mtupu haulambwi. He couldn't tell us to give him part of our lives to build the company. Then there's nothing in exchange. You see that? Because exchange is no robbery. But if you have me do your thing and you're not giving me anything in return, that's called robbery. And that's what Africans need to learn not to do. You see that? If you put your heart, mind, and soul into a company, put everything you have into the company or into the business, then it will grow, because essentially for the first 7 years, it's 7 years of famine. But that 7 years of famine, if you do it right, it will be followed with 7 years of plenty. Do you understand? But this discussion we'll do another day because I want to introduce my friend. So Ngare, thank you, and I'll seek you out so that I could summarize your amazing story. So when I was growing up, Alex Nyingi, we had I grew up in Buruburu, phase 1. Then it was a shining estate of middle-class people in Nairobi. So we had Kamba neighbors, Maasais, Luos, what have you. So my father had a son, who is of course my brother. He was called Evans, but because he was a boy, he was called a boy. I want you to catch this drift because I want to help you to connect things, because that's the whole idea about community. Connecting things that you have so that you can build something new. You see that? My neighbor next to my house was at number 149. Our house was 150. Was Kamba. He was called Joshua. So they call him Mboi. I want you to follow me then. Then my other neighbor at house number, is it 139 or 140, Alex? 137. It was directly across ours. So his mother and my mother went to the same Jumuiya. They call him Boy. You see that? So Boy now is actually working at Google, but before that, he actually worked at Microsoft. So in essence, talent is always rewarded. And I say that his title is Emerging Markets Public Affairs Manager, Government Affairs, and Public Policy. So Alex, given that you've worked at Microsoft and you've worked now at Google, we might want to invite you to work at Africa Stocking. But we're inviting you to come and say something. Come and share what you do. Thank you, guys. And please, if you guys have any question, you can always send me an email or Jess, so that the questions which were not answered could be answered. So please share your name and what you do.
Thank you, Teddy. And I think he's done quite a worthy introduction, right from when you were literally almost from birth. Yeah, yeah. So, and Teddy and I have quite a bit of an interesting history. We meet up every so often. I'll bump into each other. Most recently, we bumped into each other at Arboretum. I think he was just out there taking a walk. Same thing for me. The interesting thing for me is that I was actually taking a walk with my manager. She'd come into town. We had an offsite with a bigger team, and we thought of how can we get to know each other, because it was the first time I was meeting her in person. When I joined the company, she was on maternity leave. So I'd actually joined into the function, and for about 6 months, was sort of figuring out things around. So it was sort of like a good way to get to know each other in a more informal way, because she did my first interview, but I think a week later or so, she went into maternity leave. So more about myself. The title sounds long, but essentially what it is I work within the, let me say that since Jack was here, the non-tech side of the company. So there are people in Google as well, or Microsoft and the likes, who almost know no tech. The only thing we know how to do is send emails and join Google meetings, and that's it. And maybe talk about the tech a little bit. So for me, my role within public policy is mostly looking in terms of how do we ensure that there is a favorable environment for tech to thrive, yeah? Because technology cannot thrive in a vacuum. It won't. You can have the greatest of tech that you've designed in your computer, in your mind, or an app, but it still has to interface with the real world, yeah? And defining the real world, there are certain rules we have to conform with, yeah? Some are written, some unwritten. Most of the time, I like to say I work within the regulatory environment. Why I like to use the environment is because there is written and unwritten rules. So it's sometimes we are not looking only to ensure that policies are not put in place, but we're also looking to ensure that there's favorable policies. And you know that for people who are in the tech space, there's a lot of mystery about it, yeah? And a lot of times for people in policy, especially the ones who don't have a background around tech, most of them lean towards let's put in the regulations and then fast, yeah? And one thing we know is that if you approach it from that point, a lot of times we stifle innovation, yeah? We sort of make you guys fit within a certain space. And some of the greatest technology come from, I don't know, not even out of the box, no box at all or something of a sort. So principally that's the role I play. When you talk about emerging markets, it's just in terms of how the company is structured. So we have the market that covers Latin America, Africa, Middle East and North Africa, because most of the time we sort of North Africa, we have it off from the rest of Southern Africa. We also go further to looking into countries like Israel, Turkey, Ukraine, Russia. So that's sort of like the geographical region that I work in. And it's quite exciting for me because previously I worked a lot within Sub-Saharan Africa, and especially when I was in Microsoft. And for me, it gave me a chance to sort of like have a view of other parts of the world. Because now with tech, we really, when you talk about community now, yeah, the community you're talking about, it's not so much about we are next to each other. It's really, sometimes I'll say it's a community because you have common interests, yeah? You have common ambitions, you have common pains, yeah? Whatever is happening in other parts of the world, it's really affecting us in one way or the other. The same way we'll say, what's happening in Ukraine and Russia, yeah? It's making us, yeah, not have unga. Or most of us discovering that that's where most of our unga comes from, and not from North Rift. So I think for me, that's really, it's been quite exciting. Yeah, I hope I'll get a chance, as Teddy said, to maybe share a bit more. I think I'm one of those people who say, it's pretty hard to say, how do I define my career? Because what I do now, I don't have a background in law. I don't have a background in technology, but I find that's a space I work. Yeah, so I look a lot in terms of what is the technology, so, and what is the rules that we need to work with, yeah, or what are the rules that we need to either bend or we need to find ways to amend. But I think that's the dynamic, the uniqueness about the world we live in. And I think when Jack talked about the universities, yeah, it's a huge challenge for them. How do you prepare for this kind of people who are going to a world that you don't know? The example of the guy, and it was a really good example, the guy who said, I think during the day he's a student and he's, I was a bit worried he might say at night is a night runner, but anyway. Yeah, but that's the way to do it, yeah? That's really what defines you. You don't wait for 4 years of study, and then that's when you think about, I need to start looking for Jessica, Alexa or Jessica to start helping me write my CV. You start writing your CV the very first day you get into college, yeah? That's the time you start writing your CV. And it's because of the sum total of the experiences you collect. You don't wait for that and then start saying, I need to find a job, yeah? I need to get attachment. By the time you're finishing your 4 years, you should literally be having 4 years of experience, yeah, alongside your study. But anyway, I think I'm digressing. I was just supposed to introduce myself. Really happy to join you, Teddy. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to us working together.
Thank you. So just I'll just like actually to read something. So when I met him when I met Alex at Arboretum, what he forgot to say that I was donning a swanky bowl African hat, and his boss thought I was Mzamo Masito. Mzamo Masito runs Google Africa, I think, is part of marketing, and she literally thought I was that guy. So I was amused by that, and that's why on looking on my left, I actually saw Alex. So I'm happy about that, and Jessica and also Ngare, they have talked about so many books. And I want to say that a lot of the leadership here at Africa Talking also read a lot of books. They just don't read the books, they actually apply the books. So there's a difference. So people who want to be seen reading books, want to have stacks of libraries, but they don't apply that in their business or in their lives. So hopefully, even as Jessica mentioned, I hope at some point we'll start a book club so that we can discuss some of these books. But something that I want to just conclude with, a while back I'd been invited by Eric Schmidt to join schmidtfutures.com, but COVID happened, so I didn't join that. So he was part of the CEOs for Google for the last 10 years. So there's a fantastic book that he has written called $1 Trillion Coach, The Leadership Playbook of Silicon Valley's Bill Campbell, by Eric Schmidt, Jonathan Rosenberg, and Alan Eagle. And the values that they expose in this book is honesty, humility, perseverance, diligence, and eagerness to learn. And those are values that could help any entrepreneur or any tech builder. And the other thing also that at some point that I was taught by Joe Mushero when still mentoring us, he always said, ask questions, but most importantly, also ask the right questions. So I hope you guys will ask Sam and Ngare and Jessica the right questions, and you won't run after this to try and go and sleep or have your dinner at home, because this is an amazing resource for Africa, and we have opened it up so that it becomes the center of gravity for the tech ecosystem in Africa. We're just beginning. Like 12 years ago, we began Africa Stalking. We're beginning this. Jessica is very able. Sam is very willing and also able. And we're inviting you to come to the table so that we can build a great and new Africa. So God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Teddy. Teddy, don't go. Teddy, I need you here. I need Teddy and Sam and Graham up on stage. Jack, please come. On behalf of as they come on stage, on behalf of the Africa's Talking team, I would like to thank you, the audience and community, for coming here tonight and spending a good 3 hours, close to 3 hours actually, just listening to the conversation tonight and this evening. I'd also like to thank the Africa's Talking team, Sam, Teddy, and Graham, for the support that they've given me to organize thought leadership conversations monthly, and even allowing me to actually work out of the space anytime that I want together with my team during the week. I think this is true collaboration from the ecosystem. And I'd like to thank our guest, Jack Ngare, or as we call him, Daktari Daktari Leopard, for giving us time this evening. To share his wisdom, experience, not only about working in big tech, but his life story and opportunities that everyone at this forum has given us. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to hand over to Sam to say something and give Jack a small gift.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think I'm just excited to be 1 degree of separation from the CTO of Google. I think that's, I don't think we should take that for granted. Like literally we could whisper something in his ear and then the Google CTO will be like, what? So guys, if you have ideas, I know I've been pitching ideas at him. So if you have ideas, and he's the ideas guy, I mean, that's his job at Google. So if there's anything that we'd like to collaborate, I think we have a fantastic community. So we'd love to be your idea factory. And maybe then there's now Android in Kamba, like you said, or so whatever you think that we can whisper in the CTO's ear, because these guys can change our lives. They really can. So thank you so much for taking the time, and Africa is talking. Yeah. Yes.